Now, also going up in compensation in Switzerland is ABB's Ulrich Spiesshofer, who saw a rise in his paycheck in 2017. His compensation last year hit 9.31 million Swiss francs. That's just slightly above the 9.28 million he took home in 2016. This is according to the annual report, which was published this Friday. And speaking of pay, Snap Inc.'s chief executive officer, Evan Spiegel, received around $638 million in total compensation in 2017. That's thanks to a $636.6 million stock award he got when his company went public last March. Snap Inc. is the maker behind the popular photo-sharing app Snapchat. Just yesterday, though, the stock dropped 8%. When reality TV star Kylie Jenner tweeted that she doesn't use Snapchat anymore. US President Donald Trump is about to introduce new massive sanctions against North Korea this Friday. The sanctions relating to vessels and shipping are set to be announced at the ongoing Conservative Political Action Conference in the United States, which will end on Saturday. In the address, Trump also plans to discuss last week's school shooting in Parkland, Florida. This is according to sources. And in Brussels, EU leaders have been meeting today. The big issue there is the post-Brexit budget. European Union leaders staked out opposing positions on the size and aims of the bloc's budget on Friday, ahead of tough negotiations to deal with a hole in Brussels' finances created by Britain's planned departure next year. In the summit debate, all EU states except Britain are expected to say whether they agree to increase the 2021 to 2027 budget to pay for new common policies on security, defence and migration. Now, don't forget, you can watch us live, you can see us on YouTube, and you can catch up with our not-to-be-missed content online at CNNMoney.ch. We're going to take a short break now for your travel weather. Stay with us. Up next is the market summary.
CNN Money Switzerland business weather, starting with Europe. Next step, Africa and the Middle East. Southeast Asia. And now Australia and Oceania. Let's go to North America. We end our trip with South America. CNN Money Switzerland accompanies you all over the world.
CNN Money Switzerland brings you the content you need, whenever, wherever you need it. On our website, cnnmoney.ch, or on your favorite social media platform. Only from CNN Money Switzerland.
News programmes are usually full of short stories that hardly go beneath the surface. We give you the big picture. Every weekday evening at 7 p.m, the big picture goes deeper, looking at an issue from different angles and bringing you the guests who take time to speak, explain and elaborate. Our viewers get a deeper understanding of the day's issues and the context that underlies them. The big picture, weekdays from 7 to 8 p.m.
How do you make sure you're feeling good? We'll be focusing on all the tools available to us today to make sure we're physically and mentally healthy. From monitoring and avoiding disease to reactive and preventative healthcare, In particular, we'll be delving into the latest innovation coming out of Switzerland to ensure a long and healthy life.
Feeling Good with Amanda Kane on CNN Money Switzerland.
Entertainment, culture, fashion, arts, and lifestyle. We've got it covered on Spotlight.
Spotlight with Ana Maria Montero on CNN Money Switzerland.
I've spent all of my career in the field, and I think that informs who I want to talk to, but more importantly, who wants to and who accepts to talk to me. And I hope that what I bring to the table is a rigorous search for the truth and a rigorous determination and an effort to hold power accountable.
Amanpour.
CNN Money Switzerland is designed to flow through information. Our network provides a unique take on live, worldwide financial news. We are not your common news outlet. Instead, we act as a global catalyst of interconnected information. Our live studio provides you with a detailed and sharp analysis, predicting what is yet to come. From the heart of Europe, watch CNN Money Switzerland.
Welcome back to Living Markets. It's Friday, the 23rd of February. Let's bring you bang up to date with what's happening on the markets here and around the world. And if we start with the SMI today, it is ending the day in the red, down just a touch on the market there. In Asia, though, and around pretty much the rest of the world, markets are looking pretty healthy. Asia finished in the green, as you can see there, and in Europe, the FTSE 100 was the only index to join us in the red zone this Friday. On the other side of the Atlantic, US markets starting well into the last day of trading of the week, but of course, they are still trading across the pond. Let's bring you some of the big stories then from Switzerland today. Now, we're going to start with Swiss Re. 2017 was, of course, one of the costliest years ever for the reinsurance industry, what with all the hurricane damage. But despite this, a group net income of $331 million has been posted this Friday for Swiss Re. The talk of the town, though, is not the results. It is, in fact, the approach from Japan's SoftBank. Now, Swiss Re has said this month that it's in talks with SoftBank about them taking a minority stake in a deal that could be worth around $10 billion or more. My colleague Andreas Hahn spoke to David Cole, the CFO of Swiss Re, about the details of the talks with SoftBank and the impact of natural catastrophes on full-year results.
Indeed, these three large hurricanes that impacted the North American market in Q3 of 2017 are only a subset of the overall level of large natural catastrophes that impacted the world in 2017. Overall, we estimate about 135 to 140 billion of insurance losses off the back of large nat cats in 2017. The three that you mentioned for us, including the Mexican earthquakes, were about 3.6 billion of estimated losses. That's incorporated in our 2017 results. For all of 2017, we incurred about 4.7 billion of large losses off the back of nat cat. But I think it's important to note that's why we're here. We're here to support our clients when those types of events occur. We're here to make sure they get their claims paid. We're here to help them recover, to help them think about their own resiliency. Now, notwithstanding these large losses, which are in our results, we still printed for the year 331 million net profit, and that reflects the diversity of our business streams. We had a very strong performance with both our life and health segments and a very strong performance on our investment side.
Apart from these numbers, one topic is very important for Swiss Re, the stronger engagement of SoftBank. What does this mean in the end for your company?
Indeed, we've announced that we're in preliminary discussions with SoftBank. We updated today those discussions are continuing regarding a potential partnership and minority interest. Those are ongoing discussions, so it's simply too early for us to say anything more specific about them or any detail. I think Swiss Re is a very strong company. We've confirmed that today. Our capital position remains excellent. I think our market position remains excellent. Our client franchise remains excellent. And we have a very, I think, well-articulated strategy that we continue to pursue.
But a stake of 30% would mean as well as strong access to the so-called big data of Swiss Re. What is the advantage for your side?
So I won't refer to any specific details of the discussions. The discussions are going on, therefore it's too early to talk about any specifics regarding the outcome of those discussions. As and when we do have something to say, we will.
The Japanese side wants to have 2 or 3 seats in Swiss Re's administrative board. Is this acceptable and realistic for you?
Yeah, thanks for the question. But as I mentioned, we're not at this point able to talk about any of the details of the discussions, any of the details of potential transactions. In fact, we can't even confirm a transaction will happen. So we just have to wait and see.
Let's come now to the current year. The contract renewable round in January is done. Are you satisfied with that for 2018?
So the January renewals for us are just under 60% of our overall renewals on the reinsurance P&C side. I would say that the outcome of the January renewals was more or less in line with our expectations. You've seen that we announced about an 8% increase in premiums, about a 2% increase in pricing. We had some lines of businesses where there were relatively low losses in 2017, and there you saw modest, if any, changes in pricing. Those areas that were impacted by losses in 2017, we saw more significant increases in pricing. I would say, yes, we're satisfied, but still very important for us, of course, are the renewals that will take place in April, in June, and in July.
So could you stop the declining trend in pricing with the primary insurer, or what's the current trend for you?
So after the large losses in 2017, on the top of a fairly significant decline in pricing that had been taking place since about 2013 in the large commercial segment, yes, we believe an inflection point has been reached in pricing, already reached in Q4 of last year after these large losses. And our expectation for 2018 is indeed increasing pricing in the commercial insurance segment.
Are you planning another share buyback program?
I'm very pleased to say the Board of Directors has decided to request a dividend of 5 francs per share, which is up by about 3% from last year, as well as seek authorization for a new share buyback program. Once again, this, I think, clearly underlines, confirms the capital strength of the Swiss Re Group. We're in a very strong position. We maintain very ample flexibility. We're able to write business for our customers and, I think, return capital to our shareholders, and that's a very, very good place to be.
Perhaps the last question. The climate change takes place. How good is Swiss Re prepared in the long term for this phenomenon?
So climate change, I think, is something that's important for society as a whole. We've been aware of climate change for many, many years. It's been a focus of our attention, of course, as an insurer and reinsurer. I do believe we're working with our clients to help them understand the potential impacts of climate change and to prepare for climate change. Now, we write protection, and we need to make sure that the coverages that we provide are adequately priced. So as there's an indication of potentially increase in severity or frequency of storms, we'll need to make sure that the coverage that we're providing is properly remunerated, that we earn also an attractive return for our shareholders.
Well, as you can see, investors reacted very happily to the results news. Swiss Re finishing the day very much in the green today. Also, something to bring to your attention, Swiss construction chemicals maker Sika. Now, they reported better than expected net profit for 2017 this Friday. Here are the figures. Net sales are up over 8% and net profit is also up 14.5%. But the share price, well, it went down today, and that's because of a hostile takeover bid by French company Saint-Gobain, which is still pending. Here's Sika's new CEO, Paul Schuler, on the situation.
Oh, we had a great momentum in the United States with a growth rate of 18%. We had also great markets in Europe and also in Asia. So we were very well-traveled and well ahead.
You surpassed the high market expectation by topping the sales mark of 6 billion Swiss francs for the first time. Can this trend continue in 2018?
We had a great start in the first 2 months now, and we are confident that we will achieve a growth rate of over 10% also in 2018.
In which markets do you expect the largest growth potential in the current year?
Oh, yeah, I think also the United States will have a great run this year, but also China recover from the market. Then Southeast Asia will be very good. Also, we believe Europe will stay strong. So it's overall a mix in the world where we expect good growth rates.
Which are the most important mega trends that drives the growth of Sika?
One is the new vehicle, lighter, faster vehicles, electric vehicles. That's a big mega trend. Then the urbanization around the world in mega cities. That's a big trend. Then which needs more refurbishment in a mature market. So we have several mega trends which we can enjoy.
With this successful year, the Sika share price rose year to date over 44% is on a record high. That fact makes it more and more unlikely for the Burkhardt family to realize their deal with Saint-Gobain. Are you in contact with the Burkhardt family about the takeover battle?
We are all the time in contact during the board meetings with Urs Burkhardt. This high share price offers Sika now the possibility to hand a higher offer than Saint-Gobain, and we are confident that we'll find a way with the family that Sika stays in Switzerland and not sold to Saint-Gobain to France.
Yesterday, Saint-Gobain restated its ambition to take over Sika. The Burkhardt family wants to renegotiate the deal. What consequences such takeover would have on Sika?
First of all, I can understand that Saint-Gobain wants to extend their contract. However, the consequence would be quite severe. Sika would not be any more Sika as it is today. And as I said before, with this high share price, I still hope that the family find the right thing to do and leave Sika independent.
Do you see a higher chance to settle the lawsuit for a better solution?
Yes, I think we should work on that. And as I said, with the share price, all opportunities are there that everyone can walk away as a winner.
So what would need to happen that the family stop the plans for selling their shares?
Well, I think that's the decision of the family. The next ruling is now due in the next few, whenever the judge decides, and then that's open an opportunity to discuss.
How much are you personally involved in the takeover battle?
That's the board who works on it. I try to use everything to support it, and I try to find a good solution wherever I can help.
How much did the takeover battle cost now?
On the last General Assembly, we announced 30 million. But if you see that we talk about a 20 billion company, is that a small amount which we pay for our independence?
So you are expecting the Zug High Court decision with serenity?
Yes, we are confident we will win, and the first verdict will be confirmed.
The Burkhardt family demanded lower dividend rise amid the takeover battle. Now the dividends are higher. Why so?
The dividend should be for the shareholders, and Sika can afford higher dividends, so we should pay high dividends to all the shareholders.
And finally, what about your acquisition strategy? Are you continuing it in 2018 like in the previous year? And what concretely are you looking for?
We feel it's a big market out there, and acquisition is a part of our strategy. And we will keep the space, and we will work on more acquisition also this year.
Well, that wraps up your market summary this Friday. Well, joining me now in the studio is CORNELIA MEYER, who is CEO of MEYER Resources. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, we've got a lot to talk about today, but I wanted to start with a big subject, a big topic for us today here on the Swiss Pulse. We're talking about pay equality. As a Swiss person, you base a lot of your time in the United Kingdom. How do you see things differ between the two nations?
I am both British and Swiss, and I'm basically based in the UK and come once a month to Switzerland. And I left Switzerland because I felt, in the 80s, I felt there was just no way an ambitious Swiss female could really have a career. And I owe to the United States and to the United Kingdom that I had a career. So that's the start. But I think we are laggards. We are laggards in Switzerland when it comes to women in senior position. And pay comes with seniority. We're also probably not as ambitious and as strong on ensuring that there's equal pay for equal work. I think the Nordic countries have a lot, they're ahead of us.
And how have they done that? And in what ways are we lagging behind?
Well,
how can we change things?
Well, we probably, and I'm not usually a fan of regulation, but we probably do need a little bit of regulation. We do need that regulatory push. Now, I'd say I'm not a fan of it because, especially for SMEs, it's hard if you have yet more regulation, yet more things that you prove that you comply with. But I don't really see how we get there otherwise.
You have actually become part of a pretty prestigious club in London. How was it for you breaking through and into that kind of male circle?
It was very easy, and I have to say I was very fortunate in terms of I started my career in Japan, and it was the then Japanese Minister of Trade and Industry who asked me to become his economic advisor, and that's how I broke into sort of the policy arena. And I've always had lots of people helping me, and I've been lucky. Another thing I think is I've never attributed things to being female or being male. But then I was privileged. I had a good education. I'm reasonably feisty. And I look at my sisters who may not have, been as privileged in terms of education and who may not be as feisty. And women tend to be less feisty than men. And I say it's still harder for women, and we women need to help women to get there.
You mentioned Japan there. You're obviously based in the UK mostly, but you deal a lot in the Middle East as well. How difficult is it being a woman there?
I don't think they see me as a woman. I think they see me, and I think the Japanese, they see me as as a feisty it, who is very opinionated, who usually is right with her, judgment calls on the economy, and that's why they're willing to bear with me. But I've never had a problem. But then again, I think in the Middle East, if you are either of sort of an upper class echelon environment, or if you're a foreigner who knows her onions, it's not that hard for a woman. And I would say, actually, I look at the drive in GCC, in the Gulf Cooperation countries. Mm-hmm. I look at the United Arab Emirates. Yes. I look at Saudi Arabia, and I would say basically KSA, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is probably at this point the best place to be a woman, because the new crown prince is so aware that he needs to do something to move the needle, to make the country, to help the country grow and also to help women, that I think at this point you have the world is your oyster if you're a well-educated woman. Again, that's a matter of class, to be well-educated. But if you're amongst the lucky few with a good education, you can go very, very far indeed.
Well, let's keep talking about the Middle East. Uli Maurer has been there this week. In fact, he wrapped up a kind of 4-day tour and ended up in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. His mission there, it comes against a backdrop of this crackdown on corruption in Saudi Arabia. But Switzerland is very involved in business in Saudi Arabia, banking in Saudi Arabia. Is that why he's there?
Yes, that is why he's there. And look at Saudi Arabia with the new Vision 2030. They have the Crown Prince wants to reinvent the country, essentially, wean the country off its total dependency on oil, bring in more natural resources, and do a lot of manufacturing, agriculture, all the things that it takes to give employment to people. 70% of the Saudi population is under the age of 25. There's a lot of young people, and he needs to find employment for those people. The oil industry is a capital-intensive industry. It doesn't give a lot of employment. So he's reinventing the country. And there's a lot of investment opportunities. I've just recently spoken to the vice chairman of one of the biggest asset managers in the world, and he says his clients are all over it. So lots of excitement about Vision 2030. Some worry about the corruption crackdown. I understand why they had to do the corruption crackdown. Now, it's not probably done the way we would do it in Switzerland or in the United Kingdom in terms of due process. But then this is an absolute monarchy, so things will probably happen a little bit differently.
Now, oil prices have dropped this Friday. It's all down to the United States. It's pumping out a huge amount of oil once again. What's the word on the street in Saudi Arabia on that? Is there concern over the increase in oil production in the United States?
Well, in KSA, I would say that it's the leader of OPEC. And OPEC and these 10 non-OPEC countries have this deal whereby which they've taken 1.8 million barrels out of the market. And that has helped oil prices. At the beginning of the year, we were up at 70. And when I now look at it, and the Saudi oil minister, Khaled al-Faleh, tries very hard to work with Russia, who is the leader of the non-OPEC countries, to keep that deal going through 2018 and have an agreement of cooperation. Now, they have gone down with the overhang of inventories. We were at 340 million barrels of overhang at the beginning of 2017 of OECD inventories. We are now only at 52 barrels of overhang. So they have achieved a lot. At the same time, as you said, there's a lot of shale production coming on. And I always say with the oil market, we have the supply enthusiasts, the ones who stress the new thing. Then we have the price hawks, you know, OPEC, non-OPEC. And then we have the Cassandras who say, oh, there's been so much, not enough investment in the industry that it could spike to 90. It's somewhere in between. And the market is reacting so strongly to everything everybody says because we are reaching balance.
Let's talk about how the markets are going to develop in the coming weeks and months. What about the Trump trade war? What kind of impact is that possibly going to have on markets?
Well, I think the Trump trade war, when you looked at it, I'm less worried than I was when Trump came in and the first action he tore apart the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And you've seen now that 11 countries are going ahead and having the comprehensive, progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will be ratified or signed on the 8th of March in Chile with 11 nations, just without the United States. He's renegotiating NAFTA, but his bark is much less than his bite because he's starting to realize that 6 million jobs are on there. Then we have the China situation.
And just very briefly, where does Switzerland sit in all of this?
Well, Switzerland is sort of on the side, but the Swiss have obviously every interest in a WTO that functions. And what Trump does is he sort of undermines a little bit the WTO. But as I said, I'm less worried about it because we see around, you see around the United States so many trade agreements happening, like the comprehensive progressive and NAFTA not being that bad. We also see Mercosur and Switzerland trying to come to an agreement, and Mercosur and the EU being very close to an agreement. So I think Switzerland will try to join and have as many multilateral or bilateral agreements as it can have.
And do you think we'll see continued market volatility in 2018?
Oh, absolutely. But that is not the trade wars per se. That is more, we've been weaned off a drug. The drug was low interest rates and easy money. And that, you know, with both the Fed and the ECB contracting their balance sheets and everybody starting to hike rates, the world has to get used to the new normal. And the new normal are interest rates that are not going to go to historic lows. But we've been so used to these low interest rates and we've been so used to this zero volatility. And it's probably good for markets that we get some volatility back into them.
All right, on that note then, Cornelia Meyer, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on The Living Markets.
Thank you.
Now, stay with us here on the Swiss Pulse. After the break, we'll be speaking to an economist from the Cantonal Bank in Geneva about bond yields. And, of course, we'll be continuing our discussion on equal pay. Don't go away.
Since the founding of the Red Cross in 1863, the city of Geneva has a long tradition of hosting international organizations. In our program, International Geneva, we'll be exploring issues of international cooperation, humanitarian assistance and human rights, and talk to international players about the challenges and solutions to global problems.
International Geneva with Martina Fuchs on CNN Money Switzerland.
CNN Money Switzerland brings you the content you need, whenever, wherever you need it. Get the latest Swiss business and financial information on TV, on our website, CNNMoney.ch, or on your favorite social media platform. The best Swiss business news whenever and wherever you need it. Only from CNN Money Switzerland.
How do you turn your idea into a successful business in Switzerland? If you want to develop your business, have individual mentoring and coaching, optimize your business model, develop a marketing strategy, acquire new skills, learn how to network. Romandie Formation, business opportunities anywhere.
What drives the Swiss business world? What makes the economy tick? And how do companies react to the ever-changing challenges of the markets? We've got our finger on the Swiss pulse. We'll bring you the ups and downs, bulls and bears of the world of business, always asking what it means for you. The Swiss Pulse, weekdays from 6 to 9 p.m.
Business is always changing. Keep up with CNN Money. Maggie Lake is live in the heart of the world's economic epicenter, New York City, tracking all the action of the stock exchanges and the big business stories from around the world. Get top analysis of market movements and a daily breakdown of financial headlines. CNN Money with Maggie Lake.
At the end of the business day, we're only just getting started. On the living markets from 6 to 7 p.m., we crunch the numbers on the financial markets, bring you the top analysis of the day, and set the agenda for tomorrow. Always with Switzerland important global links in mind. The living markets, weeknights from 6 to 7 p.m., only on CNN Money Switzerland.
Welcome back to the living markets here on the Swiss Pulse. Now, I hope you're sitting comfortably because we're going to talk about yields now. And we have a quick Yields 101 to kickstart the weekend for you. Now, this is what a normal yield curve looks like. The idea is that the longer that you invest your money, the higher the return on your investment. And if we look at the rate of return from day one to around a 30-year maturity, the United States way over here and Switzerland is here. And just look at how we can compare these two graphs. OK, this is over 30 years, as I say. Now, you see the curve in the US, well, it's much less of a curve. It's more of a kind of flat line. It's a lot flatter than here in Switzerland. And in other words, it doesn't pay much, anyway, to lend you dollars for a longer period of time. In Switzerland, however, you could argue that while rates over a 10-year period are pretty low, they are positive compared to day-to-day bonds. But what does all this mean for the economy? Well, joining me now from Geneva office is our next guest. We're going to be speaking to Valérie LeMaigre, excuse my pronunciation, indeed. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. What do these curves tell us about the health of the economy?
So I think the curve is really important to understand why or what will be the expectation regarding the growth. Let me explain you. The difference between an interest rate on the long term and on the short term is really crucial for the economic and especially the investment cycle. when you are a company, like you could be Switzerland, CNN, for example, and you are in this investment cycle, you will invest in IT, in technology to run your business for the next 5 years. So what is important for you when you have this initiative to invest is that you need to have a debt that is not longer than, sorry, excuse me.
I'm hoping that you can still hear me, Valerie. Thank you for bearing with us. Looking at the United States example, and you could see that their kind of yield curve was less of a curve, it was much flatter. But is that a good thing?
Sorry, I have two thumbs, so I didn't understand exactly.
I'll try one more time, Valerie. Thank you very much indeed. I want to know, basically, that how will... Let's look into the future. How will the curve change when we start to introduce new interest rates in the future? We've already heard from the Fed, and we are looking at interest rate changes in Switzerland towards the end of this year. How will we see bond yield curves changing over time?
May I repeat the question, because I'm sorry, I had two sound in the ears. So your question is regarding the curve in Switzerland or in the US? Sorry.
I would just like to know how curves change in response to interest rate changes.
Okay, so the curve is only the difference between the long-term maturity of the curve and the short-term maturity. And so it's quite important when you have a curve that is relatively flat, it explains us, or it's maybe give us the signals that the cycle of investment that is incurred and that is mostly focusing on short-term or short-life type of equipment, because we know that 50% of the investment are related to IT equipment, then you need really to have a debt that is that have the same maturity of your investment. And if long-term interest rates are too low, that means that you will be tempted as an entrepreneur to invest, to use a debt that is a long-term debt. And then the consequence of that is that after 5 years, when the equipment is obsolete, you can have, and you still have your debt that is a long-term debt, then you can raise and start to have a problem of profitability or even solvency. So that is why it is really important to have short-term interest rates below the long-term interest rate, so that you are not tempted to take a long-term debt that will increase the risk of your business. That is why a flat curve in the US could be a signal of some, let's say, slowdown later, end of 2018 and 19. But if I may make a comparison with the 90s, with the 90s, at the end of the 90s, we had a wave of IT investment. And we had a curve that was relatively flat, but with an acceleration of growth. And that was really due to the IT wave, the IT investment wave. Today, we have the luck, or let's say we are in the same kind of shape, because we have a digitalization investment wave. So that could justify why we have a relatively flat yield curve in the US with strong growth. But we have to really keep vigilant about the signals that this flat yield curve could tell us regarding the future growth of the US economy.
And very briefly, here in Switzerland, how do you see things changing for investors in the future?
So in Switzerland, the short-term maturity is really anchored to the monetary policy. And we know by the announcement of the ECB and the SNB, we know that the short-term interest rate will not move before the end of 2018 or even 2019. So the short rate will not move strongly. The long rate could be a little bit adapted to the change in the perception of inflation or even to the US market that is moving upward. So we think that the yield curve, so the slope of the curve, the difference between the short and long-term maturity will increase. And this is a good signal for the investment cycle in Switzerland and also in Europe.
Valérie Lemeyre, I just want to ask you one more thing before you leave us. Today on the Swiss Pulse, on our programme this evening, we're looking at equal pay between men and women. And I'm wondering, as an economist, that perhaps you see a logic to the pattern?
Well, I think it's quite interesting because growth does not reduce disparity and gender disparity neither, social or gender disparity. But what we can see, and we have seen that in a recent OECD studies, is that the wage increase since the last recession is probably limited and is due to this gender disparity. Why? Because in the last 10 years, the population that increased its proportion in the labor force is mostly people over 50 years and women. And so you can easily understand that a woman of over 50 years is not really demanding in terms of wages and salaries. So I think it's the first reason. The second reason, if I have some time, is probably linked to globalization. We know that globalization is not reducing inequalities, neither gender inequalities. And in these wages increase, there is a high concurrence, inside the high-quality people, international concurrence that limit the growth of wages. And in there, women are taking more and more part of this high-quality quality and skill type of employment. So the good question that we could raise, and it remains an open question, is this globalization also a source of gender inequality in wages? And I think that's a good open question to finish this.
OK, Valérie Lemeyre, Chief Economist at the Banque Cantonale de Genève, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you too.
Now, could it be possible that we will be ringing our bell once again? It is, of course, Sports Update now with Ana Maria Montero and Matt LEIGHTON.
Matt, always great to see you. And I have to admit, today I am a bit jealous. You have found some sun.
Yes, all week I'm broadcasting from MEYER, the Altiport, no less. So it's 1,500 meters, wonderful skiing, wonderful fun. And I think in life you have to have a good mix, don't you? Work hard, play hard. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Well, we may not have sun in Zurich, but we do have something else, which we all know and love at this point. Here it is. Oh!
Switzerland's 12th and 13th medal today. Fanny Smith, 25 years old, Canton of Vaud, third time lucky. She was in Vancouver, she was in Sochi, and today she was in the final of the ski cross. She took the bronze medal. 2 Canadians were first and second, and it means that she's happy now, pretty much forever. She said she's stressed before, frustrated, and now she's just happy. Moving on, the men's curling. It's been going on for about 10 days now. They lost the first 2 matches. They won the second 2. They did a fight off to go to the semi-final. They got stuck there, and then they played the third and fourth medal match against the Canadians, who were the best team, and they beat them. So 2 medals today for Switzerland. It takes them to 13 medals, and it's not quite the championships yet. 2006 in Torino, they had 14. 1988 in Calgary, they had 15. But we're going to in a minute. There's plenty of more possibilities for this weekend to come up. So well done, Switzerland.
That's right. The Swiss are racking up the medals. We'll be so excited to see if by Monday we have reached that Calgary record. But meanwhile, someone else, so another country that's not doing quite so bad, Or the Norwegians are cleaning up in Pyeongchang.
The Norwegians are, aren't they? 37 medals so far, 5.2 million population. Why can't Switzerland do the same thing? Well, possibly they can. Bring into the game Bernard Russi. He is Olympic champion from 72 in Seoul, and also he designs most courses now. Now, he has a project, it's called Snow for Free. 28,000 school children in the last 14 years in Switzerland have had a day's experience. He's trying to go for another 3,000 next year. It's a crowdfunding, so you can look it up on the social media. But Bernard Rusty says, I learned to ski when I was young. I had a lot of fun. Let's take some of everyone, in fact, from the population, and let's put them on skis for once, and then maybe later in their life, they might get hooked and champions. So well done, Switzerland. We have Sion 2026 with all these medals, maybe a bit better. And now the champions are saying, come on, let's do as good as Norway.
And now with the help of Bernard Russi, we have a pipeline going of potential skiers for future Olympic Games, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so looking into the future, Matt, this is the last weekend of these Winter Games. You said we have more opportunities for medals. What are they?
Well, we really do. Bobsleigh. Now, Switzerland in 1924 in Chamonix, they won the gold. Switzerland have won 31 medals since then. And this weekend, so far in the first practice today, Switzerland are leading. There's 2 teams in the 4-men bob, so well done for them. Other events we're going to be looking at this weekend where Switzerland has great medal potential in the giant parallel slalom for snowboards in Sochi. Switzerland in the women with Patricia Kulmer won gold. With the men, with Nevin Galmirani won silver. They're both in action this weekend. Also, Dario, Super Dario, medal so far is his game, 4 medals so far, I believe. He goes in the 50-kilometer cross country. That could be a finale. And one last thing, it is the Alpine mixed team event. And that is where Switzerland in the first round, the last 16, play against Hungary. Yes, Hungary. After that, hopefully, they might have another medal chance. So well done so far. And it's going to be a bumper weekend. We hope and we pray, I guess.
Well, I was thinking that today might be the last day that I'm going to be ringing this 10-kilo bell, but apparently there might be another opportunity to do that Monday, even though the closing ceremony is actually Sunday, right, Matt? And then it's over.
Well, I think we need any excuse to celebrate, I would say. Hard work deserves to have rewards. So I'm going to go and do some skiing now. I wish everyone, well, it's a bit late now, clearly, but over the weekend and watching plenty of action as well.
All right, sounds great. We'll look forward to catching up with you on Monday then. Take it easy, Matt. Thanks.
Now, it's all about equal pay this Friday here on the Swiss Pulse. Next tonight, Regula Burrer-Feckler was the youngest woman ever to be named Swiss Advertiser of the Year. Bilanz magazine named her one of the most important personalities of the Swiss economy in 2014. Now she shares her working experience in her first book called Frauenarbeit, Women's Work. It's aimed at young women entering the business world. Tanya Koenig reports.
This book is addressed to young women in the business world. Regula Burrer-Feckler has been named Advertiser of the Year twice and founded her own agency before she turned 30. 10 years later, she publishes her first book and shares what she learned along the way.
Too many young women are trying to be perfect and are trying to avoid mistakes rather than try new things. Obviously, you're not going to succeed at everything that you do, but if that is ingrained in you, that you think you shouldn't try something because maybe you could fail, you're just never going to try something that you end up loving, maybe.
And loving what you do is even more important before having children.
It's always better to be professionally in a situation where you feel like it's worth to go back to work. And you have found a position where you are, or not just a position, but also a job or a passion or something professional that you feel like it's worth leaving the house for. It's worth investing in a life that's busy, and you have to do a lot of organization and everything. But I feel like you need to find that thing before you have children, because it's going to be really, really hard to find your passion professionally while you're raising children, because you just don't have that amount of energy that you had before.
Now, with this book and coaching programs, Fecker wants to inspire women to work towards a goal so that more women can make it to the top. Tanja König, CNN Money Switzerland, Zurich.
Well, it is, of course, all about women and equal pay here on the Swiss Pulse this evening. Equal Pay Day is celebrated tomorrow. Well, joining me now in the studio is Martina Fuchs, who's going to be presenting the big picture tonight. And you're continuing the conversation, aren't you?
Absolutely, Hannah. So gender equality at the workplace is the topic tonight. We have two exciting guests. I'm not going to reveal their names, but it's ladies, of course, because it's a ladies' night that we have tonight, Friday, and tomorrow, the Equal Pay Day, which is going to be celebrated or talked about immensely tomorrow here in Switzerland and around the world. Of course, this topic is so important, whether you are in China or the US. We still have this corporate glass ceiling that is so difficult to break through.
And do you think this Equal Pay Day is getting a bit more recognition this year than previous years? Is it gaining momentum?
So. Also because the Me Too hashtag campaign has really sparked a debate around the world. It's not just about sexual harassment, but just equality and being on a level playing field with the male gender as well. But what we heard about in this report just now by Tanja König, it's about finding your own place first, having your career, and then having children and having a husband. So it's like combining everything together, which is not easy. And, we have a lot of colleagues among ourselves as well who have children and work very hard. So how do you put everything under one umbrella? So this is going to be talked about in the big picture.
Okay, that's in the big picture. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for watching Living Markets. I'll be back in an hour's time for the Newsmaker. Join me then if you can. Bye-bye.
CNN Money Switzerland weather. We start with the webcam of the day. Here is an overview of the values recorded in the last hours. And now the radar animation of the last 90 minutes. Let's have a look to the forecast for this afternoon. And for tomorrow. Here is an overview for the next days in German-speaking Switzerland. In Western Switzerland. And south of the Alps. Thanks for following us.
Let's talk tech. Do you want to see the latest gadgets? Understand where robotics will take us next? Find out more about the pioneers and their latest research? Join us on Tech Talk, where we'll be meeting the people behind the big ideas here in Switzerland and around the world, and finding out what it means for businesses, consumers, and the planet.
Tech Talk with Anna Maria Montero on CNN Money Switzerland.
Money is more than just currency. It is the fuel for how we live our lives. It connects us. It drives us. It buys us things. But it is more than that. It is who we are and what we want.
Yeah.
Oh, Money isn't everything, but it is everywhere, and so are we. We are younger, we are richer, and we are smarter. We are money. CNN Money.
Connect the world with Becky Anderson.
It all starts here. Changing, fighting, creating, connecting. That's why we're here. We live here, we work here, we're from here, and we'll go wherever the story takes us.
I'm Becky Anderson in Tehran.
We are in Jerusalem. Real news that shapes our world. Exploring not just what's going on, but why.
I just want to press you on one further point.
Getting perspective on this region from this region. Places that many of us know, but few of us get to see. Observing countries on the move, still rooted in tradition. It all starts here, and that's why we're here, bringing you the world from our Middle Eastern hub.
Connect the world with Becky Anderson.
In our big picture hour, SYLVIE DURRER explains why she thinks a proposed change in the law will help close the salary gap between women and men. It would mean firms with more than 50 employees would have to carry out wage checks. Some businesses argue this would create too much red tape. But Ms. DURRER, director of the Federal Office for Gender Equality, disagrees.
It's not so much time for such an important issue. And then I think it's also a question of economics, of fair competition. We cannot accept that companies which don't respect the gender pay equity have an advantage against other companies which respect it.
And in our Newsmaker hour, we hear from someone who has broken through the corporate glass ceiling. SIMONA is the CEO of IKEA Switzerland and a passionate campaigner on equal rights in the workplace.
And, you know, now I'm a mother of 3. I have 2 daughters and a son. And I don't want a world where one of the 2 should struggle more than the others only because of their gender. And so this was my push, my trigger to start working towards gender equality. Somehow is also my social engagement.
Good evening, you're watching The Big Picture. I'm Martina Vochs. It's great to have you here. Let's take a look now at the top stories making news here in Switzerland and around the world. It's a company which many of us would never have known anything of before they got caught in a takeover battle. Swiss construction chemicals maker Sika. The founding family Burkhardt wants to sell their stake to French construction company Saint-Gobain. But since the announcement in December 2014, Sika's share price has more than doubled. In fact, it's higher than the French company's bid, which was at an 80% premium. Today, Sika reported a better than expected net profit for 2017. Sika, whose products have helped waterproof the Gotthard rail tunnel here in Switzerland under the Alps, said net profit jumped by 14.5% to 649 million Swiss francs. The unknown outcome of Saint-Gobain's takeover remains an element of uncertainty for the future, according to Sika CEO Paul Schuler. But he had some news today for the family.
We are all the time in contact during the board meetings with Urs Burkhardt. This high share price offers Sika now the possibility to had a higher offer than Saint-Gobain, and we are confident that we'll find a way with the family that Sika stays in Switzerland and not sold to Saint-Gobain to France.
Swiss price watchdog Stefan Meyer wants to focus on the rising healthcare costs in Switzerland. Health insurance premiums have risen 4.6% since 1996. In a press conference on Friday in Bern, he presented proposals to increase cost transparency. He started with an online tool which compares the costs of common hospital procedures. Now, also going up in compensation in Switzerland is the salaries. ABB's Ulrich Spiesshofer saw a rise in his paycheck in 2017. His compensation last year hit 9.31 million Swiss francs. That's just slightly above the 9.28 million he took home in 2016. This is according to the annual report published on Friday. And speaking of pay, Snap Inc.'s Chief Executive Officer Evan Spiegel received about $638 million in total compensation in 2017. That's thanks to a $636.6 million stock award he got when his company went public last March. Snap Inc. is the maker behind the popular photo-sharing app Snapchat. Just yesterday, the stock dropped 8%. When reality TV star Kylie Jenner tweeted that she doesn't use Snapchat anymore. And US President Donald Trump is about to introduce new massive sanctions against North Korea this Friday. The sanctions relating to vessels and shipping are set to be announced at the ongoing Conservative Political Action Conference in the US, which will end tomorrow, Saturday. In the address, Trump also plans to discuss last week's school mass shooting in Parkland, Florida. This is according to sources. And in Brussels, EU leaders have been meeting today. The big issue there is the post-Brexit budget. European Union leaders staked out opposing positions, on the size and aims of the bloc's budget on Friday, ahead of tough negotiations to deal with the hole in Brussels' finances created by Britain's planned departure next year. In the summit debate, all EU states except Britain are expected to say whether they agree to increase the 2021 to 2027 budget to pay for new common policies on security, defence and migration. And coming up in our Big Picture Hour, on the eve of Equal Pay Day, we ask how fair are workplaces in Switzerland and what more can be done. In a moment, we will hear from SYLVIE, the director of the Federal Office for Gender Equality. She says that paying women the same as men is very vital going forward. Stay tuned.
We know nowadays that this value of equal pay is very important for women, but also for men too, if they want to keep their workforce, if they want to have a good atmosphere, they should really settle this issue. Because nowadays there is a certain suspicion, and I think it should be in their advantage, and they should have an advantage when they want to hire people.
Excuse me, miss, you dropped this.
No, it's just a penny.
Just a penny? Just a penny? It all begins with the humble penny. Whether writing your first check or cashing big checks. To those at the top making their mark, closing deals round the clock. On Quest Means Business, we know every penny has power. And it's not how many you have, it's what you do with them that counts. That's the marvel of money. Quest Means Business. What a profitable hour!
News programs are usually full of short stories that barely go beneath the surface. We give you the big picture every weekday evening at 7 p.m. The Big Picture goes deeper, looking at an issue from different angles and bringing you the guests that take time to speak, explain and elaborate. Our viewers get a deeper understanding of the day's issues and the context that underlies them. The Big Picture, weekdays from 7 to 8 p.m.
It's high energy and fast-paced, so buckle up as Front Seat brings you the latest news and views from the automotive world. Car developments, industry news, interviews with successful drivers, the latest trends and next-level innovation here in Switzerland and around the world. On Front Seat, we'll keep you on the right road.
Front Seat with Hannah Wise on CNN Money Switzerland.
CNN Money Switzerland is designed to flow through information. Our network provides a unique take on live, worldwide financial news. We are not your common news outlet. Instead, we act as a global catalyst of interconnected information. Our live studio provides you with a detailed and sharp analysis, predicting what is yet to come. From the heart of Europe, watch CNN Money Switzerland.
Talking about how much you earn isn't a topic everyone is comfortable tackling. But for campaigners for equal pay, it is an issue which isn't talked about enough. For the average woman in Switzerland, 1,412 francs is how much less she earns every month compared to a man doing a similar job. 58% of the pay gap is due to factors that can be explained, like having children, for example, while 42% of the pay gap, or 599 Swiss francs per month, remains unexplained. A proposed change in the law which aims at solving the issue is being discussed next week in Bern. It would mean that a firm with 50 employees or more would have to carry out wage checks. And if a gap was found, employees would have to be informed. Some businesses are concerned this will mean too much red tape. For example, the Swiss Employers Organization says that monitoring wages is the wrong approach to reducing the pay gap between women and men. There are 7% of the pay gap which remain unexplained and which cannot be associated with gender discrimination in companies. As we gear up towards Equal Pay Day tomorrow, we ask if enough is being done to create a fairer workplace and if such a law change will really make a difference. SYLVIE DURRER is the director of the Federal Office for Gender Equality, and she spoke to Ana Maria Montero about her reasons for reform.
Your office is working very hard to tackle the pay gap. But even so, there is still a significant gap. What are the reasons that women in Switzerland don't get paid the same amount for the same work?
Well, the work of women is not recognized in the same way as the work of men. There is a long tradition. Before you had some two different scales. So there was a scale for the women wages and a scale for the male wages. And nowadays it's no longer the case. But nevertheless, there is some kind of stereotypes about the female jobs, about the way women work in companies and so on. And very often companies are not aware that they are not paying women in the same way as men.
They're not aware?
Yes, because they didn't make the analysis. And very often it's nowadays it's no longer conscious, and most companies which don't pay women and men in the same way are not conscious about it because they didn't make the analysis. And as long as you don't make an analysis, you can't be sure that you pay women and men in the same way.
Which we will get to, because this is one of the efforts that your office is spearheading. Now, what could be some of these reasons then why women are not being paid enough? I mean, you said, okay, maybe they're not aware they're not being paid, but what could be some other reasons?
Well, I think we have to distinguish between the difference in wages and the discrimination in wages.
Okay.
So in Switzerland, like in many other countries, if women are not paid in the same way, it's because they don't have the same education, it's because they don't have the same professional position, they don't have the same experience and so on. So you can explain part of the difference in the salaries of men and women with objective reasons.
Okay.
And we can understand this in a way, so we have to try to tackle these issues also. We have to make sure that women and men have the same possibility of education. We have to organize infrastructures for childcare and so on. So there we have to do something, but we can understand or we can explain part of the wage gap. But there is a certain part of the wage gap which is unexplained.
Like what?
Like it's about 7%. It's 7%. It's a lot of money. 7%, it means about 600 Swiss francs per month, and it means about 7.7 billion a year. It's an estimation, of course, but it gives a little bit an idea of what it means, this unexplained gender wage gap. So it's a lot of money.
We're talking exactly about this wage gap is about 600 or 700 francs a month, unexplained.
Exactly.
Just because
you're a woman.
Just because you're a woman. And does this idea of having a family that a woman may have to take off, does that come into play for this? Is that part of this unexplained?
Probably. It's because companies or HR people and so on who are fixing the salaries and so on think that women are not going to be as competitive, as their performance are not going to be as high and so on. But very often it's not conscious. It's not conscious in the way you are going to consider the experience of women and so on. And because it's not a science, the way you are going to fix salaries, and their stereotypes play a very important role. So that's why you have really to make an analysis. And most companies are sure that they pay women and men in the same way. But when they make a serious scientific analysis, then quite a few of them observe that it's not the case.
And you mentioned earlier, again, the 700 francs, but it's really like 1,400 on average overall.
Exactly.
In terms of the pay gap, between men and women.
Exactly, the pay gap. But you can't use the same tools in order to fight the overall wage gap and this unexplained part.
Let's talk about the law. Another thing, solution or development in the pipeline is a proposed change to the law. Now, we know that equal pay is already part of the Swiss Constitution. It's already in there, but you would like to see it amended. Tell us more about
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
It's in Constitution. It's very important because you don't have so many countries which have included this issue in their Constitution. A lot of countries have law about gender equal pay, but they don't have this in their Constitution. So it shows that this issue is very important for Switzerland. And now our government would like to come with a new law. It's about obliging all companies with 50 and more employees to make an analysis. And these companies should make an analysis every 4 years, and it should be examined, checked by a third party in order to make sure that the analysis is correct, is scientifically correct and legally correct.
And how will this help?
Excuse me?
How will this help?
I think it will help because, as I said before, a lot of companies never made an analysis. And in this survey we made, we saw that companies are pretty open to the issue, but they want that the rules are very clear and that they are the same for all.
Yeah. Now, as you said, there are companies that are already doing this analysis, but there are others that say, it's just like you said, it's just too much work, it's too much red tape. What do you say to these guys?
I think that first it's a question of justice. They have to make the analysis. We developed a tool in order to help them to do it.
You've given them the tools.
Exactly.
All they have to do is put the numbers in.
Just use it. They have the data, or they should have the data they need to make the analysis. And then it's going to take them a few days, sometimes even less than a few days, in order to make the analysis. So it's not so much time for such an important issue. And then I think it's also a question of economics, of fair competition. We cannot accept that companies which don't respect the gender pay equity have an advantage against other companies which respect it. So we have really to bring all companies to make the analysis and to bring corrections if they don't respect the law.
Puts a little pressure on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Some need a little bit more pushing. Now, where are you in the process of this amendment?
Well, it's being discussed in the Parliament. So the Parliament accepted to discuss the matter, and so it's already a very important step. And now they are discussing all the different elements which the draft includes.
Now, this is for companies that have 50 or more employees, correct? So I know that there are many, many SMEs in Switzerland that do not have 50 employees. What are we telling them? How should they regulate themselves? Or
well, companies with 50 and more employees, it means only 2% of all companies in Switzerland, so it's kind of company. But for the smaller companies, we're aware that we have to do something for them too, and we're trying also to develop another tool in order to try to help them. So we are in the process of development.
Now, of course, I'm sure you'll come up with something for those guys as well. Of course, equal pay is only fair. But what are the broader incentives for businesses? For example, is there an increase in productivity? Is it a better work culture when you pay people equally for the same work?
Yes, I think you're right. It's a question of culture and of good culture. And we know nowadays that this value of equal pay is very important for women, but also for men too, if they want to keep their workforce, if they want to have a good atmosphere, they should really settle this issue. Because nowadays there is a certain suspicion, and I think it should be in their advantage, and they should have an advantage when they want to hire people, to be able to say, and we made the analysis, and we can assure you that we respect equal pay. And also, I think it's important to have mixity, to have a certain gender diversity in companies. We have quite a few studies which show very clearly that mixed, diverse teams are more productive than teams which are not diverse.
All right, so if we move on now to gender equality, another area of speciality for you in the broader sense. Again, you're very active and bringing about fairness, not just for women, but also for men. If we look at the Global Gender Gap Report by the WEF from last year, 2017, it showed that Switzerland had dropped in the rankings. How do you explain this?
Well, there is one main explanation. We have less gender balance in our federal government. Before, we had 3 women out of 7 ministers, and nowadays we have only 2 women out of 7 ministers. And naturally, the participation of women in the decision-making, in the political decision-making at the higher level, at the highest level, is a main dimension of this index. So it's a reason. And a second reason is that you have a lot of countries which are really working very hard on this issue, and they have made more improvement than Switzerland. So I think we have to try to catch up with the other countries, and it's a good competition between countries.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Do you feel, when you see these kinds of rankings, because, like you said, there's a pretty direct explanation for it, but is it frustrating for you? Because you are, heading up, you're the director of gender equality, and when you see these lists come out and you say, oh, Switzerland has dropped, how does that...
Well, it's a little bit of a disappointment, naturally, but also it's an incentive to do better and to work harder in order to convince more people that it's an important issue. Yes, I think these rankings, we can explain, we can discuss them and so on, but nevertheless, they push the different countries to do something in this field.
And Switzerland, of course, is not alone. I mean, no. The overall feeling from WEF, from the World Economic Forum, is that the that this whole movement seems to be losing a bit of momentum, you know, that it's coming to a stall almost on a global level. Do you agree?
I agree that the progresses, the improvement are difficult to make, but I think there is a momentum that more and more women are aware of the issue in the public and in the global society, and they want governments to do more, they want companies to do more. So there is a kind of contradiction. At a certain level, we have to acknowledge that the progress are not being made in all fields at least, and on the other side we see that you have hundreds, thousands, 10,000s of women and men who are marching in order to have more gender equality. In Switzerland too, last year we had about 10,000 people, women and men, who marched in Zurich in order to have more gender equality. So we can't say that there is not a momentum, that it's not an issue for the society. It's still an issue for a lot of women in Switzerland and men.
Very present, yes.
Absolutely.
Very present. Well, another issue that has gained a lot of momentum in the last year, as you are also aware, is the whole sexual harassment in the workplace.
Absolutely.
In Switzerland as well.
In Switzerland as well. So we made a survey a few years ago where we showed that about a third of women encounter sexual harassment in their working life, and also about 10% of men. So it's a very important issue we see. And now with all this public discussion, with the social medias, there are more and more women especially, but also sometimes men, who go to the different organizations, to the different bureaus, in order to say, okay, I'm living this is normal, what can I do about it? So it's very important that they are aware of the situation. Some women are not aware that it's not legal, so they are aware nowadays that it's illegal.
Or what it is.
And we can do something about it. And also it's important, it's another issue for companies. Companies in Switzerland have a responsibility. When there is a case in their company and the direction didn't make anything, the company can be brought to court and can be condemned if it doesn't do anything in order to prevent the situation. So it's very important that companies are aware of the situation. They cannot just close the eyes. They have to develop rules. They have to say very clearly that there is zero tolerance in their organization, and they have to make it very clear to all employees, and not only once every other year, but really regularly. It has to belong very to the values of the society.
And not only women, as your survey has shown, it also affects men.
It affects also men. It's a minority, but it can also affect men. And we have to say it very clearly. So it's again, it's not only a women's issue, it's a society's issue.
So then going forward, how can we help future generations of women have, and also men, have a fair experience at work?
It's about the culture in companies. And I think really companies have to address this issue. They have to make an analysis of the situation about gender equal pay, but not only about the situation, how many women do they have at the different levels of the companies. They have also to analyze their situation as far as reconciliation of work and family goes. Do they have policy there which help parents, mothers, especially, but not only mothers, to reconcile work and family? Do they have flexible time arrangement and so on? So I think companies should really try to analyze the situation and to see whether they can improve it. What can they do about it? And then they will have also more possibilities to hire more talents, because then a lot of women and men, especially young women and men, should get interested in companies where there is really where there are family-friendly policies and so on.
Is there any company that comes to mind that you think this is an example of a company that's doing things right in moving forward with this
Well,
issue?
I see that nowadays in Switzerland you have a few companies which are starting advertising about it. And it's quite interesting. So there is a big insurance, there is also a bank, and they are advertising with this, saying, okay, look, we are interesting companies. For us, gender equality, it's a value. We don't only say that it is a value, but we have policies in our company which show that we live these values.
So you have a lot of experience on both sides. So you raise your family while also fulfilling your professional obligations. What would you say to younger people, to ensure that they can fulfill their potential? I mean, what is your advice to them?
Be open. When you have a child first, it's a wonderful news. So be happy. Be happy about it and see it as a challenge and not as a problem. So, and be open. In Switzerland, we have, for instance, a very strong culture about part-time. It's wonderful that women in Switzerland and men also have this possibility to keep on working and to work part-time if they want to do it. But it's not the only solution. So I would tell them first, don't keep on working. It's very important.
So don't give up your career.
Exactly. For men and women, it's very important because it's always more difficult to reintegrate the working life. So stay in your profession and then try to have a look at all different options. Is part-time a good option? Should you try to have more flexible organization and so on? But just be open and discuss. Discuss with your superior in order to try to find a solution. But stay in your business. Don't give it up.
Thank you very much, Sylvie. That was lovely. Thank you for being with us today on The Big Picture and lots of good advice to share then for our future generations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You are watching The Big Picture. Coming up, we meet a doctor who says she lost her job because of gender discrimination. She took her case to court and won. NATALIE URWYLER will share her story with us in a minute.
This was a very hard situation because until the age of 40, I worked really hard. I advanced my career. I achieved the specialty in anesthesiology and emergency medicine, and I did a lot of research. And when all was taken away, I was devastated.
CNN Money Switzerland Business Weather, starting with Europe. Next step, Africa and the Middle East. Southeast Asia. And now Australia and Oceania. Let's go to North America. We end our trip with South America. CNN Money Switzerland accompanies you all over the world.
She is one of the few women in Switzerland to win a case against her employer for gender discrimination. In 2014, after 11 years of work, NATALIE URWYLER was dismissed from her position as a senior anesthesiologist in the Inselspital in Bern. A long-term breakdown in trust was the reason that Dr. URWYLER says she was given for her dismissal. But in her view, it was because she was a woman. Last Tuesday, the regional court in Bern confirmed that she has been discriminated against. It ruled that Inselspital did violate the Gender Equality Act here in Switzerland. And now her former employer has to reinstate her and pay her costs and damages of more than 111,000 Swiss francs. This decision, even though it is not a final one, is a victory for NATALIE URWYLER.
And she was here earlier to tell her story. Miss URWYLER, you are a doctor, a professor, an academic, and also a mother. You must be very proud of all these achievements and bringing them all together.
Sure, I had a very good professional life. I did become a mother rather late in life. I was 40 years old, but I am happy to have a child, and it's a piece of big management to do it all what is possible. And I do work 80%, and it's working well.
Now, you worked as a senior anesthesiologist at the Inselspital of Bern. How did you feel when this job was taken away from you?
This was a very hard situation because until the age of 40, I worked really hard. I advanced my career. I achieved the specialty in anesthesiology and emergency medicine, and I did a lot of research. And when all was taken away, I was devastated.
So when did you decide to take legal action, and why?
The things in life for my career were much harder for me than they were for my male colleagues. And I tried to discuss this with my superiors without success. And then they fired me. And when I tried to find another job in anesthesia, I couldn't get one. And that was the point where I thought, now it's enough. Now there must be done something against this, because I'm not alone. I'm not the only woman going through such things.
So what was the first step in this legal challenge?
To file the lawsuit. And it was a big work to get all the proof, because it's really hard to prove discrimination. And I had to collect a lot of papers, which was not so hard for me because I'm a scientist. I'm used to collect data and to do statistics and get the things out of the data.
But finding evidence for discrimination must be a very tough thing to do.
There were many things done against me and against other women, so I already had all the proof. I just had to find it.
Were you able to get legal advice from other lawyers and colleagues and other council, members at the university hospital, or were you basically left alone?
My lawyer is Rolf Steinecker from Bern. He's a very competent and experienced lawyer, and most of the work was done by the two of us.
Mm-hmm. Now, these are, of course, your allegations, and we have contacted the Inselspital Bern as well for comment, but have not. They said they could not comment on the case right now. What were some of the biggest challenges that you were facing in this legal battle?
So when I still was working there was that I was not given the possibility for discussions, because I think we could find solutions. We prepared a lot of solutions for maternal protection, but the superiors just did not listen. And during the lawsuit, it was the same. They never discussed anything with me. Even now, they will not talk with me. And this is hard because I still think solutions have to be found.
Some people would have given up in that, legal battle, but you have continued your fight. What was basically pushing you? Why did you decide to keep going?
There were many, many people supporting me. Many other women, other professionals, also many men who are willing to take social responsibilities in our society. There was my family. And I do have a daughter. And my biggest wish is that she will be judged according to her performance and not according to her gender.
So do you see this court decision as a milestone and also your role as a pioneer to basically advance women's rights here in Switzerland?
The verdict for sure it's a precedent. It has never been done in Switzerland, that this is they fired me because of revenge. And that is the first time that this has been done with a big entrepreneur in Switzerland. So yes, I think it's very important. And I will try to continue to help other women to fight for their rights.
Now, this legal process has taken several years. What could be done to make it shorter and easier?
Ooh, that would more be a question for a lawyer. It takes a lot of time to go into a trial, to look at all the proof. It takes a lot of time. I don't know how something like this could speed up.
You mentioned before the show that you have, talked to many women who are in a similar situation. Now, what kind of advice could you give to other women in the workforce and maybe in, medicine especially, that are discriminated against?
We have to have the courage to ask for the same things like men have. And today it's not normal that women ask for the same pay or for pay rises. We just have to do that, and we have to continue doing this. And I think it will get easier as the topic is more and more discussed in our society.
And what can businesses, academic institutions and others do to really improve the situation for women in the workforce?
First of all, I think we need about at least 30% women in leading positions. And when you have a mixed group, ideas are so much more open, and there are solutions for every problem, but it has to be discussed.
Sexual harassment is another topic. What do you think can be done to, avoid any sexual harassment in your industry and also in Switzerland in general? For me, there's only one way you can go into this topic. There is no point in firing one man because it doesn't solve the problem. When I entered to Stanford University, I had to do several classes like lab safety, and I also had to go to a sexual harassment class. And I thought, what are they going to do with me? And I was there, and it was really good. They showed some situations, and in the end, they asked one really important question. They asked, if this woman would be your daughter, do you think the way she's treated is okay? And there, everyone realizes where limits can be and what people have to think about. Today, you work in a hospital in the canton of Valais, but the court ruled that the Inselspital in Bern should give you your job back. Would you take it back?
For sure, I would take that job back. I worked at the Inselspital for more than a decade, and it's a good job. And
even if the same management is still in place?
Yeah, sure. But we have to discuss the issue of discrimination.
And do you think that things will change with the discussions and your court case?
Things have to change.
Now, communication is very important, and you have spoken out against that. Do you think that this is really the way forward, a better communication strategy with your employer and also here in Switzerland to open this debate?
If I could have chosen, I would not have chosen to go for a lawsuit. I would have chosen the discussion, but they didn't want it to. So I think you should solve these problems internally in your business.
And where do you plan to take your, fight against discrimination and for more women's rights? Do you plan to do more in terms of advocacy going on from here?
So, first of all, I'm a doctor, and I will stay a doctor because that's really my profession. That's what I'm good at. But I will be happy to help and give advice to any women who would be interested in knowing how such a lawsuit can be done.
And, for your daughter, you have one daughter. What is your hope for the future? What kind of environment do you hope that she will be able to work in one day?
I hope that she will live in an environment where gender is not an issue, where your performance is judged and nothing else.
Plenty still to come on gender equality this Friday. In our Newsmaker Hour, which is next, we hear from Simona Scarpaleggia, who is the CEO of IKEA Switzerland and the co-chair of the United Nations High-Level Panel for Women's Economic Empowerment. And she has plenty of insights to share.
We try to be global and we try to be smart. What I want to hear are authentic voices of people who are passionate, or intelligent, and that's the consistency that we try to get at.
Fareed Zakaria GPS.
Only from CNN Money Switzerland.
What drives Swiss leaders? What is the secret to their success? In the NEWSMAKER, we speak to successful CEOs, entrepreneurs, politicians, decision makers, opinion leaders, sports, and entertainment personalities. We find out what makes them tick in a special long-form interview that gets to the heart of who they are and where they are going. So pull up a chair and join us for the NEWSMAKER every weekday evening from 8 p.m. on CNN Money Switzerland.
Somebody to tell you their story, it's something I take really seriously, and it's not something you can just parachute in and ask somebody to open their heart to you. To peel away the layers to get to the heart of the person who you're telling a story about.
France will never give up against the terrorists.
And delve beneath the surface of what's happening. You can hear their story, and you're going to do their story justice. You have to show yourself to them.
So right now they're hovering pretty low over this area that's extensively flooded.
CNN's the right place to tell their story.
Only from CNN Money Switzerland.
How do you turn your idea into a successful business in Switzerland? If you want to develop your business, have individual mentoring and coaching, optimize your business model, develop a marketing strategy, acquire new skills, learn how to network. Romandie Formation, business opportunities anywhere.
What drives the Swiss business world? What makes the economy tick? And how do companies react to the ever-changing challenges of the markets? We've got our finger on the Swiss pulse. Well, we'll bring you the ups and downs, bulls and bears of the world of business, always asking what it means for you. The Swiss Pulse, weekdays from 6 to 9 p.m.
CNN Money Switzerland brings you the content you need, whenever, wherever you need it. Get the latest Swiss business and financial information on TV, on our website, cnnmoney.ch, or on your favorite social media platform. The best Swiss business news whenever and wherever you need it. Only from CNN Money Switzerland.
Welcome back to the big picture. A big topic this week is making the air we breathe cleaner. A German court has deferred a decision on whether to allow a ban on diesel cars in cities to lower air pollution. Germany's top administrative court in Leipzig was considering stopping the cars from entering the centers of Stuttgart and Düsseldorf. The group Deutsche Umwelthilfe, or German Environment Aid, this year sued 9 German cities to get them to enforce clean air regulations by banning diesel cars. The ruling would be pivotal for shaping future demand for diesel technology worldwide. Paris, Madrid, Mexico City and Athens have said they plan to ban diesel vehicles from city centres by 2025. CNN's Atika Schubert reports on the issue concerning clean air campaigners in Stuttgart.
Tejas Lucas loves his bike. He averages 250 kilometers a week in his home, Stuttgart, but there is a problem.
Well, I could smell that it wasn't clean. It did hurt in my nose. It did hurt in the eyes.
Lucas is worried about NO2, nitrogen dioxide, from diesel exhaust. The EU says in 2014, an estimated 400,000 premature deaths were caused by NO2 and fine particulate pollution. Lucas points to 2 plastic vials he's installed on his route designed to trap and measure NO2. There are more than 500 of these throughout the country. But Lucas isn't just a concerned cyclist, he is also a car engineer. Germany's auto industry makes up nearly 15% of its GDP and employs more than 800,000.
We are very car connected. I mean, every person here is somehow getting money from the company. If not me, then it's my family that earns money from the car industry. Everything's connected. And they're very proud of it. I'm very proud of the cars and the products we make. And but the idea we have that cars have to be run by petrol and that everyone has to have their own car in a city that's growing and getting more and more compact, that setting has to change.
Nearly half of new cars in the EU are diesel, but in 2015, Volkswagen was caught cheating emissions tests in California, spewing NO2 up to 40 times the legal limit. Suzanne Yallow says she wasn't surprised by that. She shows us the layer of smog that hangs over the city. Stuttgart is one of 28 cities across Germany that regularly exceeds EU limits for NO2. For years, I sent my kids out and told them to play outside when the weather was nice, she says. But cold, clear weather like we have now is not good. The issue is that air stagnates underneath. It's like a lid that sits on the smog and cannot get out, she says. That's when she checks her particulate meter, a simple PVC pipe and circuit board device made for less than $40, one of hundreds across the country, a grassroots initiative to measure the cost of car pollution. In the last year or so, things have changed, she says. People now realize all citizens are affected. Getting Germany to give up, or at least put aside their beloved diesel cars, may not work immediately, but citizens like Lucas and Yellow are hoping their persistence pays off. Atika Schubert, CNN, Stuttgart, Germany.
Movie and music on the program tonight, including a tidbit for Star Wars fans. Here's David Daniel with the Hollywood Minute.
I've seen this raw strength only once before. It didn't scare me enough then. It does now.
If Star Wars The Last Jedi left you wondering what happens next, J.J. Abrams knows. The filmmaker, who's directing and co-writing Star Wars Episode 9, told Stephen Colbert on The Late Show, "We have a script. It starts shooting end of July." Abrams also co-wrote and directed The Force Awakens and was a producer on The Last Jedi.
Yeah, this is my palace. Champagne in my chalice.
Janelle Monáe fans rejoice. The singer just dropped 2 new songs, Django Jane, an anthem about race and gender, and Make Me Feel, a funkier track featuring actress Tessa Thompson in the video. Monáe also revealed her long-awaited 3rd solo album, Dirty Computer, will drop April 27th.
If I knew what happened, I could save his life.
The sci-fi flick Annihilation, opening this weekend, features 5 female explorers. Star Natalie Portman asks, if a group of men can go on a dangerous mission, why not women?
And there's a lot of women who love sci-fi, and also men can relate to women the same way that women can watch a movie about a man and like relate to it. So I think it should just be normalized. Like if you're a human being, you can empathize with any other human being.
In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
And that's it from me on The Big Picture. Up next is the Newsmaker with my colleague Hannah Weiss.
Hi, Martina. Hi.
So, what's coming up in the Newsmaker? Something similar?
Yes.
We stay on the ladies' topic, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're still talking about the gender pay gap. We're still talking about equality. And tonight we have a very special newsmaker. We're talking to Simona SCARPALEGGIA, who is the CEO of IKEA Switzerland. Now, she's been in the job since 2010, but in that time, what she's managed to do, it's amazing. She's achieved a company-wide goal of a gender-balanced management and equal pay 6 years ahead of schedule.
I cannot believe it, because usually when I go to IKEA, you know, shopping for furniture, I'm not thinking that this is a company that is actually promoting gender equality and equal pay as well. And she's also very active in the United Nations to really empower women around the world, which is so, so crucial.
But it's not just women that she's empowering. Not only has she afforded this kind of equality within her workforce, but she herself is a mother of 3, and she's created better conditions for men by granting paid paternity leave for up to 2 months for her male employees.
This is incredible and should be, you know, an example for so many companies around Switzerland. And it's not just the big players, right? Like banks, UBS, Credit Suisse, but also the smaller players, the SMEs, where I guess, you know, training and education would play a big role.
Weird. That's actually the hardest thing, because if these companies don't have the funds in order to kind of embrace these changes. But, you know, grassroots changes are happening.
And we have learned so much from these amazing ladies tonight that are actually pioneering and want to create change here in Switzerland as well. And as we know, Switzerland is not very fast in advancing women's rights. History has shown. So what are you doing this weekend? Going on a ski trip as well? Because we have Arctic temperatures.
Yes, it is. It's been incredibly cold.
Siberian weather outbreak that is going to happen next week. So I guess we'll have to get ready for that. And maybe instead of going to IKEA, shopping for warmer clothes, isn't it?
It certainly sounds like it. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much. And I can't wait for your Newsmaker hour. And that's it from me on The Big Picture. I'll see you again next week on Monday. Have a great weekend and stay warm over the weekend. See you soon.
CNN Money Switzerland Leisure Weather. We start with a webcam of the day. We continue with the Alps of Western Switzerland. And the weather forecast for the next days. A glance now on the resorts of Central and Eastern Switzerland. And an overview of the weather conditions to come. Here is the snow report of the ski resorts in France. And the weather forecast for this region. And we end with the Austrian and Italian Alps. We wish you a pleasant stay in the mountains.
Money is more than just currency. It is the fuel for how we live our lives. It connects us. It drives us. It buys us things. But it is more than that. It is who we are and what we want.
Yeah.
Oh, Money isn't everything, but it is everywhere, and so are we. We are younger, we are richer, and we are smarter. We are money. CNN Money.
The Newsmaker is the ultimate talk show where the biggest names in Switzerland tell you their most important stories. We delve into the economy, markets, politics, real estate, media, technology, and more to sharpen your mind and broaden your horizon every weekday from 8 to 9 p.m.
CNN Money Switzerland brings you the content you need whenever, wherever you need it. On our website, cnnmoney.ch, or on your favorite social media platform. Only from CNN Money Switzerland.
And seeing Shanghai the old-fashioned way. CNN Business Traveler in China. By the end of the next decade, the largest aviation market in the world.
Are you ready for that?
Businesses are spreading their wings. China Eastern, keeping the Chinese skies safe. New ways to earn miles.
Are you still a mileage geek?
Yes, always. And bridging culture gaps.
Don't ask.
On the next CNN Business Traveler.
CNN Money Switzerland is designed to flow through information. Our network provides a unique take on live, worldwide financial news. We are not your common news outlet. Instead, we act as a global catalyst of interconnected information. Our live studio provides you with a detailed and sharp analysis, predicting what is yet to come. From the heart of Europe, watch CNN Money Switzerland.
Welcome to the programme. This Friday, we're focusing on the challenges and successes of being a working woman in Switzerland. Simona SCARPALEGGIA is the CEO of IKEA Switzerland and a passionate campaigner on equal rights in the workplace. She's our newsmaker tonight.
And, you know, now I'm a mother of 3. I have 2 daughters and a son. And I don't want a world where one of the 2 should struggle more than the others only because of their gender. And so this was my push, my trigger to start working towards gender equality. Somehow it's also my social engagement.
And in the Living Markets Roundup this Friday, Swiss economist CORNELIA MEYER tells us it's her feisty attitude that gives her the edge when she's working against the gender pay gap.
Then I was privileged. I had a good education. I'm reasonably feisty. And I look at my sisters who may not have, you know, been as privileged in terms of education and who may not be as feisty. And women tend to be less feisty than men. And I'd say it's still harder for women. And we women need to help women to get there.
Good evening. I'm Hannah Wise, and you're watching The Newsmaker. Welcome back. You're watching the Swiss Pulse. It's now time for the Newsmaker Hour, but we will start with a roundup of the main news headlines first of all. Swiss construction chemical maker Sika has released better than expected net profits for 2017. The company, whose products helped waterproof the Gotthard rail tunnel under the Alps, said they jumped by 14.5%. The news comes as Sika continues its takeover battle. Founding family Burkhardt wants to sell their stake to French construction company Saint-Gobain. But since the announcement in December back in 2014, Sika's share price has more than doubled. There still remains some uncertainty about the future, but CEO Paul Schuler had this news, at least for the family.
We are all the time in contact during the board meetings with Urs Burkhardt. This high share price offers Sika now the possibility to hand a higher offer than Saint-Gobain, and we are confident that we'll find a way with the family that Sika stays in Switzerland and not sold to Saint-Gobain to France.
Swiss price watchdog Stefan Meyerhans wants to focus on the rising healthcare costs here in Switzerland. Health insurance premiums have risen 4.6% since 1996. In a press conference on Friday in Bern, he presented proposals to increase cost transparency, starting with an online tool which compares the costs of common hospital procedures. Snap Inc.'s Chief Executive Officer Evan Spiegel received around $638 million in total compensation in 2017. That's thanks to a massive stock award when he got his company public last March. Snap Inc. is the maker behind the popular photo-sharing app Snapchat. Just yesterday, however, the stock dropped 8% when reality TV star Kylie Jenner tweeted that she doesn't use Snapchat anymore. US President Donald Trump has announced new sanctions against North Korea this Friday. The sanctions relate to vessels and shipping and trading companies. They were announced at the ongoing Conservative Political Action Conference in the United States, which will end on Saturday. President Trump called them the heaviest sanctions ever imposed by the United States. In Brussels, EU leaders have been meeting this Friday. The big issue there is the post-Brexit budget. European Union leaders staked out opposing positions on the size and aims of the bloc's budget on Friday, ahead of tough negotiations to deal with a hole in Brussels' finances created by Britain's planned departure next year. In the summit debate, all EU states, except Britain, are expected to say whether they agree to increase the 2021 to 2027 budget to pay for new common policies on security, defence and migration. That's you up to date. Do stay with us. After the break, we'll bring you tonight's newsmaker, Simona SCARPALEGGIA, CEO of IKEA Switzerland. She gives us her take on equal pay and how women can and should climb for the corporate ladder.
Gender equality is the big thing, and I believe that really it is a matter of human rights. But as a business person, I've been working in business since more than 30 years. I also see it is a smart thing to do. It supports the business enormously under different perspectives. For instance, a gender-balanced workplace creates an atmosphere where things are seen from different perspectives.
Let's talk tech. Do you want to see the latest gadgets? Understand where robotics will take us next? Find out more about the pioneers and their latest research? Join us on Tech Talk, where we'll be meeting the people behind the big ideas here in Switzerland and around the world, and finding out what it means for businesses, consumers, and the planet.
Tech Talk with Ana Maria Montero on CNN Money Switzerland.
How do you turn your idea into a successful business in Switzerland? If you want to develop your business, have individual mentoring and coaching, optimize your business model, develop a marketing strategy, acquire new skills, learn how to network. Romandie Formation, business opportunities anywhere.
Excuse me, miss, you dropped this.
No, it's just a penny.
Just a penny? Just a penny? It all begins with the humble penny. Whether writing your first check or cashing big checks. To those at the top making their mark, closing deals round the clock. On Quest Means Business, we know every penny has power. And it's not how many you have. It's what you do with them that counts. That's the marvel of money. Quest Means Business. What a profitable hour!
Only from CNN Money Switzerland.
I've spent all of my career in the field, and I think that informs who I want to talk to, but more importantly, who wants to and who accepts to talk to me. And I hope that what I bring to the table is a rigorous search for the truth and a rigorous determination and an effort to hold power accountable.
Amanpour.
The Swiss Pulse delivers you the most important global and Swiss business and financial news, connecting Switzerland to the world. Tune in every weekday from 6 p.m. or find us on the go on our website or social media platform. Welcome back to the Newsmaker Hour. Now, tomorrow, Switzerland will be marking Equal Pay Day. This is a national day of action organised by the Business and Professional Women of Switzerland that highlights the pay gap between men and women. One of the strongest supporters of closing that gap is CEO of IKEA Switzerland, SIMONA Scarpaleggia. Ana Maria Montero recently sat down with her and discussed the challenges for gender equality and equal pay facing this country and what she's doing about it.
Well, one of the things that we would like to talk about today is something that's very close to you, but also something that's very timely, and that would be equal pay. Equal Pay Day is tomorrow, Saturday, in Switzerland. So we also know that this is something that's, like I said, you are very outspoken about and have made a lot of inroads about.
Well, I don't see a reason why we shouldn't pay people that do the same job with the same salary. And, but we all know that women have been over time penalized in this area. And we have also seen that in different countries, we always have a difference and a gap that is over 20%. I think now we are 27 in Switzerland, which doesn't make any sense. However, we worked on it in IKEA. So since 2015, we have reached equal pay in IKEA Switzerland. And we have been certified with this EDGE certification, and we have been also recertified only a few months ago. So we kept the situation in a balanced way. And we are very happy about that. We are also proud, but honestly, I don't think that is something that we should be bragging about, because we shouldn't be the only ones. And so far, we are the only company certified like that, and I really do hope that many more companies follow this example.
Tell us just briefly what that means to be EDGE certified. Like, what do you have to comply with?
Yeah, the EDGE certification is a certification that goes through a process that analyzes 3 areas. The first one is the facts, so equal pay, number of women in different levels of the organization, and this is objective, let's say. Then there is another area that they check, and it is the sustainability of the picture that they take with the objective data. So if you have policies in place that make it possible to make it sustainable. So, for instance, at IKEA, when we hire people, we always want to have a gender-balanced shortlist of candidates. And same thing we do when we promote people. This guarantees that merit is anyhow taken into consideration, but on a balanced base. And the third thing that they analyze, it's more about how people perceive this in the organization. So in our case, they ran more than 1,000 questionnaires with our co-workers. And this also confirmed that people are aware that the working climate acknowledges gender equality.
I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, yes, this makes complete sense. This is so logical. But you're telling me that you are the only ones certified at this level. What am I missing?
Yeah, most probably. I believe that this is due to, historical reasons and biases. We are all biased. We all have been, we grew up with a certain image and traditional image of women taking care of the care work of the family, most probably not working, and also doing jobs that were more ancillary, more supporting, but not really taking responsibility. And this is one hand. And the other end is also sometimes also driven by the fact that women are not used to ask as much as men do. And I think women should learn. There's nothing wrong in asking what you think is good for you or what you think you need, and then having a conversation. So the two things together made this reality somehow.
Yes, you're right. Women in general are not as assertive in the workplace, especially as men. It's an old problem.
Yeah, it's an old problem. And there is this. I've been talking over decades to so many women, and most of the times, when a woman is ambitious and wants to grow, the normal behavior is that they work harder and more, and they expect that someone will notice them. And this is not always the case. But men do differently. So I think we should, as women, learn from men. Men just flag it. And there's nothing wrong with flagging it. Hey, I've done a good job. Can you have a look at it? And this, it's part of the communication skills that should be developed. Even though women have very good communication skills in other areas, but this is to be improved, I believe.
We're talking about we women, and we are women. I mean, this is, I don't know about you, but I have experienced these situations in my professional life, which begs the question, where does this drive for you come from? You are, as we said before, very outspoken on both equal pay, but also gender equality, which we were just bringing up. Where does this motivation to speak out come from?
Well, I lived in a family where my mom was working. So for me, her model was almost natural. I mean, I always considered working. And personally, I also had my ambitions when I was young. And so I pictured a future where I could really, take the possibilities that I had. But working, I saw that that was not a reality. Starting from the role models. Many decades ago, when I was a teenager, you just looked around, and men in leadership in Italy and in the leadership positions in economy, in politics, in medicine, in every industry, they were held by men. And so I also thought, how can that be? Is it forbidden to me? So I started somehow reflecting on what can I do, what is my tool kit that I need to prepare. But on the other hand, I also wanted to help other women. And now I'm a mother of 3. I have 2 daughters and a son. And I don't want a world where one of the 2 should struggle more than the others only because of their gender. And so this was my push, my trigger to start working towards gender equality. Somehow is also my social engagement.
I want to talk more about your balance of family and work life with your children, et cetera, a little later on. But before we move on, for you then, is gender equality and equal pay, they go hand in hand?
So gender equality is the big thing. And I believe that really it is a matter of human rights. But as a business person, I've been working in business since more than 30 years. I also see it is a smart thing to do. It supports the business enormously under different perspectives. For instance, a gender-balanced workplace creates an atmosphere where things are seen from different perspectives. Creativity is enhanced. The working climate is much more agreeable.
Yes, agreeable.
Agreeable.
It's positive.
Positive, yes. And also, it is very, very important to be able to mirror the customer base. Here in IKEA, for instance, we have 60 to 80%. It depends if you see the real decision makers or those who just purchase. It's 2 different statistics, but it is mostly women. So it would be really missing opportunities if we didn't listen to the female perspective and have a better understanding.
So it's good business.
It is good business. It is good business, for sure. Another topic that is also very, very important is when you know that companies always struggle and there is this war for talents and we fight to get the better talents. And then companies, in this case we forget half of the talent pool, which is the female talent pool. And also that is, for me, it's a no-brainer. There is so many qualified women in Switzerland, in Europe, in North America, all over the world. But the statistics say it clearly. There's many qualified women with fantastic educational background and results, and we shouldn't ignore them. We should, give them an opportunity and take the opportunity of their talent.
Right. It's a win-win.
Win-win, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
speaking now of statistics, if we look at Switzerland in particular, you know, we have the Schilling report. Yes. The new one is due out just in a couple of weeks, the 7th of March. Last year's showed that only 4% of women in Switzerland were CEOs. And what needs to change? What are the problems and what needs to change?
Well, this is quite extreme in Switzerland, especially in the world of work, because maybe in politics there's more women, but in companies it's really tough. I think we need to create a common commitment. For instance, 4 years ago, I founded, together with other companies, an association called Advance. And this association, it is the first and only association of companies who commit to support women in the workplace. And this was very important for me, because in this way companies can partner and create a bigger critical mass to change habits, policies, and also statistics in a sense. So there is, we need to create a movement of opinions and show the best examples. I really believe in the power of good examples. Last year, for instance, and it was, I've been the president of Advance for 4 years, and last year was my last year, and we concluded it asking the CEOs of the companies that are part of Advance to commit about gender equality. So not only saying that they believe in gender equality, but also to demonstrate that they are serious about it, and they committed. So we managed to have 40 CEOs committing. IKEA committed to give 2 months paternity leave, which is the other side of gender equality.
Yes. No, it's not just about women, it's also about men.
Not only about women. It's about supporting families and create an environment where people can balance their private life, professional life, family life. And so having 40 committing to do concrete things, I think it was a very, very good signal. So I believe that we need to do concrete things. This will move the needle.
And speaking of good examples, here at your IKEA home, this is something that you have promoted since you started as a CEO, 7 years ago?
Yes.
Something you brought with you.
Yeah. First of all, IKEA is a value-based company. So the people that work here work very well together. Togetherness is one of our core values. So it is a very good base. And we started from there. First of all, we realized that we needed to look at the facts. Because we gave for granted that, you know, we are a value-based company, we work together, we have Scandinavian roots, so it's no problem. No, it's no problem, but then statistics were not where they should be. But this is the beauty of this organization, because we are open to say, okay, now this is not working, let's see how can we reach there, because we believe this is the right thing to do. So we planned it. We are a business, so we had to plan the different steps. And as we say in business, what you measure, it gets done. We got clear goals. So when we had a gap, we said, okay, now we can close the gap in 2 years or in 3 years in some departments. We just planned for it and we did it. So, I mean, it sounds super easy. I'm sure that it's easier than many people or many organizations think. It's not super easy because you need to work on that as any other business goal, but it is totally possible.
Well, later on the programme, we'll be talking more to Simona Scarpaleggia about how she sees the future of retail and the lessons she personally learned from IKEA's founder, Ingvar Kamprad. Now we're going to go for a quick break, but not before giving you a glimpse of your weekend weather.
CNN Money Switzerland business weather, starting with Europe. Next step, Africa and the Middle East. Southeast Asia. And now Australia and Oceania. Let's go to North America. We end our trip with South America. CNN Money Switzerland accompanies you all over the world.
Business is always changing. Keep up with CNN Money. Maggie Lake is live in the heart of the world's economic epicenter, New York City, tracking all the action of the stock exchanges and the big business stories from around the world. Get top analysis of market movement and a daily breakdown of financial headlines. CNN Money with Maggie Lake.
Spotlight, CNN Money Switzerland's program dedicated to lifestyle, celebrity, entertainment and culture. We bring you a snapshot of the latest trends in Switzerland and around the world, from Hollywood to design, big names and rising stars, to art collectors and architects. It's right here under the spotlight.
Spotlight with Martina Fuchs on CNN Money Switzerland. CNN Money Switzerland brings you the content you need, whenever you need it. Get the latest Swiss business and financial information on TV or on the go through our website, cnnmoney.ch, or through your favorite social media. The best Swiss business news, whenever and wherever you need it. Only from CNN Money Switzerland.
Make sure you're feeling good. We'll be focusing on all the tools available to us today to make sure we're physically and mentally healthy. From monitoring and avoiding disease to reactive and preventative healthcare. In particular, we'll be delving into the latest innovation coming out of Switzerland to ensure a long and healthy life.
Feeling Good with Amanda Kane on CNN Money Switzerland.
Since the founding of the Red Cross in 1863, the city of Geneva has a long tradition of hosting international organizations. In our program, International Geneva, we'll be exploring issues of international cooperation, humanitarian assistance and human rights, and talk to international players about the challenges and solutions to global problems.
International Geneva with Martina Fuchs on CNN Money Switzerland.
Welcome back to the Newsmaker Hour here on the Swiss Pulse. Now, she's a go-getter by anyone's standards. CEO of IKEA Switzerland since 2010, Simona SCARPALEGGIA achieved a company-wide goal of a gender-balanced management and equal pay 6 years ahead of schedule. This mother of three also created better conditions for men by granting paid paternity leave of up to 2 months. So, how does she do it? And what did she learn from IKEA's iconic late founder? She told Ana Maria Montero all of this and much more in the second part of tonight's Newsmaker interview.
And now that you've become a bit of a poster child in this, issue of gender equality, what is the next conversation that you're having when you look at this? I mean, have you maxed out your possibilities of gender and pay equity?
Yeah, in terms of, the quantitative part is there, but you need to work on it constantly because people change position, people go on maternity leave or on paternity leave, they leave the company. I mean, there is always a dynamic, but I think we should, internally, we should continue to think, to do something to support families of all kinds, and also be closer to the life cycles of people. I think that it is not only, there's a lot of discussions around maternity, as if maternity would be the big hinder for women, the big guilt for women, which is an absurd conversation, I would say. But we all go through different life stages. When we're young and we want to, set up a new home, when we have kids, when our parents are sick, when we don't want to have kids and we want to, pursue a higher education or something else. I mean, we are all different and have different needs and stages. And I believe that more and more companies should have a conversation with the people that work there. Again, this win-win will be what will make the difference for companies. Times are over. I think there is this patriarchal model of conquer, control, and command somehow that is obsolete. We are in a much integrated world. Now we talk a lot about co-creation, we talk about cooperation, sharing. This is a much more feminine dimension, I would say, that not only women have, but I think it expresses quite nicely what the feminine is. And I think this is what the world needs now.
Possibly, and a little bit less mansplaining.
Yeah.
A little less, of this kind of environment. Now, you've said before that Generation Y is set to be the big driver in this direction, this gender discussion. What do you mean by that?
So Generation Y is close to my heart because I have 3 kids that belong to that generation. So
you got to experience it firsthand.
I experience them, I talk with their friends, and I see that they're much more fit and suitable to the situation today because they work with a network in their mind and they think borderless. We live in a borderless world. Internet and the whole digitalization it's creating a much easier opportunity for people to connect and they care and share much in a much easier and open way than in the past, where, when I started to work, there was this mantra, information is power, so you don't share information. No? So, if you say it today, you were done.
Yes, it's like,
die,
almost not even relevant.
No, exactly, but that was the mantra at the time, you can imagine. So I think that the young generation can really bring a new wave and a new openness.
But yes, there's even more of a crossover in just roles. They're not roles that are just for women or just for men, less and less.
Exactly. Yes, this
for
is
this
true.
generation.
This is true, and I can see it in the office as well, because since we got this paternity leave, I already, and it is some months ago, but already some colleagues, they wanted to use it, and also part-time. It's interesting, because part-time so far in this country is considered a tool that is used for mainly by women
when they want to come back.
Yes, or
after
come
having
back,
children,
or if they want to reduce their time after having children. So it is seen, wrongly so, as a flag that you are not so much engaged, which is really wrong, because I would say it's the opposite. Women and men who want to work part-time, despite the fact that they need to balance with other things at home, they are even more committed if that's the case. And we introduced part-time already 4 or 5 years ago also for leadership positions. And now that it is very clear that for us it's not a matter of discriminating these people, of considering them less committed, we have both men and women. having part-time roles.
So let's talk about you and where you are today. You're a CEO of a global company. Was this always the goal, or was it about the higher you can get, the more influence you can have?
Yeah, being a CEO per se is not a goal, but I am and was ambitious at the time, and CEO was one of the possibilities that I contemplated. I also want to say to women, if possible, don't deny you're ambitious. Why should we? I mean, normally in this bias world, you know, it's, oh, no, I'm not interested in power, I'm not interested in a career, and then they work like crazy to get there, because we were raised to be modest.
There's a certain shame.
Yeah, which is a pity, because ambitions doesn't equal arrogance, are two different things. Huh? And it's a normal feeling that some have not, and it's not a problem. So what I wanted to do is to get more and more responsibility, also to influence more. And I could see that when I got to leadership positions, I could change also the way we worked. And this has created a better working environment for women. Now, many, many years ago, when I started to work in Italy, it was very common to have the important meetings after 6 o'clock, between 6 and 8. And then 8 o'clock, everybody, the men, because they were mostly men, went home, and there was someone home, their wives, who prepared everything, and men were tired. And so when I started to call the meetings myself, I changed the timetable. So I said, the meeting, we do it in the morning, and when we are done after 3 hours, it's more than enough. Then you can continue deliver your work, and then this opened up space also for women. But it's not an obstacle for men. So what I mean, working towards gender equality is not about women antagonizing men. It's about working together and make a better business and a better world at the end.
And for you, it's very much also about putting people first.
I believe in people. I mean, what we do it for people, with people, through people. You know,
you say it's almost a moral duty for businesses.
Absolutely.
To take care of
I
people.
believe that. I think we need to lead with purpose. Of course, we need to deliver results, improve our products, make profits. I mean, otherwise we will not be able to survive as an organization. But we need also to be grateful to the people that contribute to this result and create a better working environment for them all, for us all. So that was what has driven me so far, and still drives me, whatever business I'm in.
Sadly, IKEA recently lost the founder, Ingvar Kamprad. I heard he was very hands-on. He was kind of everywhere. Do you have a specific takeaway from him?
Well, yes. I met him, and I was definitely not the only one who met him. When we celebrated him and shared some memories about him, in the room, we were, I believe, 100 people, more than half met him personally here. And if you go to our store in Nobon, almost all co-workers met him because he was very present. What I learned from him is this continuous willingness to understand what was needed by the customer in every single detail. You know, retail is detail, and he really went into the details, but stepping into the customer's shoes. And he also always wanted to find a different way, new ways. That was most probably what we have in our DNA, to do things differently, to make possible that nice products are accessible to many people, and always to grow. He always said, no, most things still remain to be done. And I think this is so positive, so valuable, because it drives us towards progress always. You're never content. No, you're happy but never content, which is a nice feeling, I think.
What's the biggest challenge for you right now in terms of the retail landscape?
Well, retail is changing a lot. The world around us is changing, and digitalization is, of course, also impacting us. And I was mentioning the fact that the borderless world has created a completely different kind of competition. It's not the competitor nearby who sells the same kind of product, which was the previous model. It's everywhere, anywhere, at any time, any kind of product. Maybe not even furniture, so because there is a competition for the wallets, etc. What I see as an evolution in retail is that now is not only, I call it the retail trilogy, is not only the brick and mortar stores that are still there, it is the online commerce, but it is also showcasing products in different situations. We had this very successful pop-up store in the center of Zurich.
I remember.
And for us, it's important to experiment these things, and we will continue, because I think that also the role of the stores will be changing. You know, the IKEA stores are already a place where people touch and feel the products, where they, you know,
very interactive.
And it's very interactive. And this interaction needs to become even more advanced, I believe. The stores should be places where people meet other people, where they learn something, or where they have fun. It's not only a shop window. No, it's not enough anymore.
Earlier, you mentioned you have 3 children, your Generation Y tribe at home. What has been... Obviously, you've had to achieve a balance between your professional life and your personal life. What has been the key to finding this?
Well, at my time, because now my children are grown up, it was about being very, very organized.
Very organized.
Very organized, very committed.
Spreadsheets or?
No, but I had quite a family organization.
Yeah.
My husband and myself, we shared our calendars because he was
He's also a
working
manager.
in business, yes. Mm-hmm. So we needed to make sure that someone was present, and we had a person, and marvelous nanny supporting us. Mm-hmm. So it is organization committed. You need to want to do it. I wanted to do it, so I never regretted. And
you never had a moment of like guilt?
No, I was
because I have mom guilt sometimes. Yeah. That's why I asked you.
Yeah, mom guilt. Not really, but there were some moments where I was tired, and so you need the energy as well. But with a different environment, it could be easier, both for fathers and mothers, or whatever role you have, to balance it better. So I just want to clarify, there is not either or. Either you're a good parent or you are. By the way, nobody asks fathers, right? Are you a good father and still working? No, this does never happen. But,
how do you balance? Nobody asks men
both.
this.
Yes.
This is true. This is very true. Well, what advice then do you give to your children, to young people?
Well, first of all, I mean, be clear to what you are and what you stand for, because as much as the world changes, this is going to be even more important. Who knows which will be the new jobs in 5 years or even in 10 years. So you need to stand for something and build your own toolkit, get your own knowledge that you will carry on, do what you're good at and not what you're forced at. And of course, this is not always possible. It depends where you are, what is the employment situation. I'm totally aware. But I also believe in people and in the strength that they have. And those who are more privileged, because they live in an environment maybe that is more privileged, they could do their part also to support others to come to a better situation.
Is there anything you would have done differently in retrospect? I mean, something you would have told a younger Simona, do this instead of this? Or was it?
I don't know, because I think all the mistakes I've done, I've learned from. And as an attitude, I prefer to look more at today
forward.
And tomorrow and learn from yesterday. But I think it's a bit of a... If you don't take the learning, it's a waste of time regretting, right?
Something you've talked about, specific more to Switzerland, is a bit this lack of a pipeline for women. So how are you going to have executives or women in executive positions if we don't prepare the pipeline? What can we do differently here?
I think this pipeline topic is super important because, of course, we can, there are companies or countries who decide to have quota, and I'm not against and not pro. But if we focus our attention only on board level, then we don't solve any problem because we touch only a minority. If we have a good pipeline, it means that in every level of the organization you have women and men at the same level, and then it's a piece of cake then to have a balanced board. No? How do we get there? I think by adopting some simple policies that make sure that you give the same opportunity. So if you don't have a balanced number of candidates in a short list, challenge that and look for it. And then you can always choose the best one. But when you have a balanced number, statistically, because statistic is important, statistically you will end up in a balanced situation. But if you start with 0 women and 3 men in the short list, guess who would you get?
This whole idea, one thing you mentioned about school, you know, the timing of the school systems is something that would be an easy change, not to have children come home for lunch, but that would have a tremendous ripple effect.
I believe that in Switzerland is a very pragmatic country, so I trust and I believe that it will make progress in this area. Personally, I see 2 areas where Switzerland can really move a lot. And the first one is the school time schedule. You know, it's impossible as a parent to go to work and then after 2 hours back and then go back again. No, it doesn't work unless you have financial means that support private.
Somebody can do this for you, in other words. You go to work and then you have somebody who's doing this.
We need to see the majority, of course. So this would be a big advancement. And I talked to many women in Switzerland that they would be more than happy then to engage themselves more in jobs because of this obstacle removed. And the other thing is more related to the taxation system that somehow penalizes the second income. And normally the second income, so the lowest income, is a woman. Normally, you know, it doesn't. So when we balance these 2 factors, I think it will be a booster for the Swiss economy at the end, because more women in work will generate more GDP, higher request of services, and the economy will thrive. This is a very good economy, but can do even better.
So if we broaden out to another topic you're very passionate about, it's gender equality, of course. You're co-chair of the UN High-Level Panel on Women's Economic Empowerment. I have to read that. It's a long title. And you founded, as you told us, Advance Women in Swiss Business. Tell me a little bit more about what you do for the UN.
So with the high-level panel on women's economic empowerment, we started to work in 2016. So Ban Ki-moon created this panel in order to showcase commitment and share good examples about gender equality in the world in order to reach this goal that
in 2030 that says that we're going to have equality all over the world.
Yes, and we're very far from that. It will take, with this pace, 216 years to get there. So we need to do something, right?
Makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. But the good news is that we issued 2 reports. And the first report was more showing all the statistics and the best practices that could, you know, in a way demonstrate that there is good for the world and the economy in the world, and there is also good for good examples to follow, and it's not that difficult, let's say. It's possible. The second report, the new Secretary General gave us this objective. It has to be succinct, it has to be concrete, it has to be transformational. So we really tried to stick to this mandate, and we have shared so many toolkits that, and it's open, it's on the website. Companies, governments, organizations, NGOs, individuals can follow these indications and move steps. So it's really, really very concrete. And now, you know, we came from all walks of life for this panel, and now we are back to our normal business, but we tried as much as possible to advocate about that because there is so much good and there is a lot of commitment. I wish that governments could have high on their agenda gender equality, as well as CEOs in companies should have gender equality either high on the agenda, because it brings wealth, well-being, prosperity, much more than micromanaging, I would say.
Are you frustrated by this lack of action?
Well, sometimes I am, and sometimes I'm really upset because there are backlashes. But I'm optimistic. I think we have reached a tipping point. And so I see these backlashes as reactions, but I think now it's almost unstoppable, luckily.
Well, lovely. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us today, Simona, and being our newsmaker.
Thank you very much.
We continue now with gender equality in the living markets. Earlier, we talked to Swiss CEO CORNELIA MEYER at MEYER Resources on the eve of Equal Pay Day. We asked her for her experiences.
I am both British and Swiss, and I'm basically based in the UK and come once a month to Switzerland. And I left Switzerland because I felt, in the 80s, I felt there was just no way an ambitious Swiss female could really have a career, and I owe to the United States and to the United Kingdom that I had a career. So that's the start. But I think we are laggards. We are laggards in Switzerland when it comes to women in senior position, and pay comes with seniority. We're also probably not as ambitious and as strong on ensuring that there's equal pay for equal work. I think the Nordic countries have a lot, they're ahead of us.
And how have they done that? And in what ways are we lagging behind? Well, how can we change things?
Well, we probably, and I'm not usually a fan of regulation, but we probably do need a little bit of regulation. We do need that regulatory push. Now, I'd say I'm not a fan of it, because especially for SMEs, it's hard if you have yet more regulation, yet more things that you prove that you comply with. But I don't really see how we get there otherwise.
You have actually become part of a pretty prestigious club in London. How was it for you breaking through and into that kind of male circle?
It was very easy, and I have to say I was very fortunate in terms of I started my career in Japan, and it was the then Japanese Minister of Trade and Industry who asked me to become his economic advisor, and that's how I broke into sort of the policy arena. And I've always had lots of people helping me, and I've been lucky. Another thing I think is I've never attributed things to being female or being male. But then I was privileged. I had a good education. I'm reasonably feisty. And I look at my sisters who may not have, been as privileged in terms of education and who may not be as feisty. And women tend to be less feisty than men. And I'd say it's still harder for women. And we women need to help women to get there.
You mentioned Japan there. You're obviously based in the UK mostly, but you deal a lot in the Middle East as well. How difficult is it being a woman there?
I don't think they see me as a woman. I think the Japanese, they see me as as a feisty it, who is very opinionated, who usually is right with her, judgment calls on the economy, and that's why they're willing to bear with me. But I've never had a problem. But then again, I think in the Middle East, if you are either of sort of an upper class echelon environment, or if you're a foreigner who knows her onions, it's not that hard for a woman. And I would say, actually, I look at the drive in GCC, in the Gulf Cooperation countries. Mm-hmm. I look at the United Arab Emirates. Yes. I look at Saudi Arabia, and I would say basically KSA, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is probably at this point the best place to be a woman, because the new crown prince is so aware that he needs to do something to move the needle, to make the country, to help the country grow and also to help women, that I think at this point you have the world is your oyster if you're a well-educated woman. Again, that's a matter of class, to be well-educated. But if you're amongst the lucky few with a good education, you can go very, very far indeed.
Well, could it be possible that we will be ringing our cowbell again? It is, of course, time for a sports update with Ana Maria Montero and Matt Leighton.
Matt, always great to see you. And I have to admit, today I am a bit jealous. You have found some sun.
Yes, all week I'm broadcasting from Megève, the Altiport, no less. So it's 1,500 meters, wonderful skiing, wonderful fun. And I think in life you have to have a good mix, don't you? Work hard, play hard. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Well, we may not have sun in Zurich, but we do have something else, which we all know and love at this point. Here it is. Oh.
Switzerland's 12th and 13th medal today. Fanny Smith, 25 years old, Canton of Vaud, third time lucky. She was in Vancouver, she was in Sochi, and today she was in the final of the ski cross. She took the bronze medal. 2 Canadians were first and second, and it means that she's happy now, pretty much forever. She said she's stressed before, frustrated, and now she's just happy. Moving on, the men's curling. It's been going on for about 10 days now. They lost the first 2 matches. They won the second 2. They did a fight-off to go to the semi-final. They got stuck there, and then they played the third and fourth medal match against the Canadians, who are the best team, and they beat them. So 2 medals today for Switzerland. It takes them to 13 medals, and it's not quite the championships yet. 2006 in Torino, they had 14. 1988 in Calgary, they had 15. But we're going to in a minute. There's plenty of more possibilities for this weekend to come up. So well done, Switzerland.
That's right. The Swiss are racking up the medals. We'll be so excited to see if by Monday we have reached that Calgary record. But meanwhile, someone else, so another country that's not doing quite so bad, are the Norwegians. They're cleaning up in Pyeongchang.
The Norwegians are, aren't they? 37 medals so far, 5.2 million population. Why can't Switzerland do the same thing? Well, possibly they can. Bring into the game Bernard Russi. He is Olympic champion from 72 in Seoul, and also he designs most courses now. Now, he has a project, it's called Snow for Free. 28,000 school children in the last 14 years in Switzerland have had a day's experience. He's trying to go for another 3,000 next year. It's a crowdfunding, so you can look it up on the social media. But Bernard Rusty says, I learned to ski when I was young. I had a lot of fun. Let's take some of everyone, in fact, from the population, and let's put them on skis for once, and then maybe later in their life, they might get hooked and champions. So well done, Switzerland. We have Sion 2026 with all these medals, maybe a bit better, and now the champions are saying, come on, let's do as good as Norway.
And now with the help of Bernard Russi, we have a pipeline going of potential skiers for future Olympic Games, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so looking into the future, Matt, this is the last weekend of these Winter Games. You said we have more opportunities for medals. What are they?
Well, we really do. Bobsleigh. Now, Switzerland in 1924 in Chamonix, they won the gold. Switzerland have won 31 medals since then. And this weekend, so far in the first practice today, Switzerland are leading. There's 2 teams in the 4-men bob, so well done for them. Other events we're going to be looking at this weekend where Switzerland has great medal potential in the giant parallel slalom for snowboards in Sochi. Switzerland in the women with Patricia Kulmer won gold. With the men, with Nevin Galmirani won silver. They're both in action this weekend. Also, Dario, Super Dario, medal so far is his game, 4 medals so far, I believe. He goes in the 50-kilometer cross-country. That could be a finale. And one last thing, it is the Alpine mixed team event, and that is where Switzerland in the first round, the last 16, play against Hungary. Yes, Hungary. After that, hopefully, they might have another medal chance. So well done so far, and it's going to be a bumper weekend. We hope and we pray, I guess.
Well, I was thinking that today might be the last day that I'm going to be ringing this 10-kilo bell, but apparently There might be another opportunity to do that Monday, even though the closing ceremony is actually Sunday, right, Matt? And then it's over.
Well, I think we need any excuse to celebrate, I would say. Hard work deserves to have rewards. So I'm going to go do some skiing now. I wish everyone, well, it's a bit late now, clearly, but over the weekend and watching plenty of action as well.
All right, sounds great. We'll look forward to catching up with you on Monday then. Take it easy, Matt. Thanks.
Well, that wraps up tonight's edition of Swiss Pulse and the Swiss Pulse for this week. We'll see you again on Monday. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye. News programmes are usually full of short stories that hardly go beneath the surface. We give you the big picture. Every weekday evening at 7 p.m, the big picture goes deeper, looking at an issue from different angles and bringing you the guests who take time to speak, explain and elaborate. Our viewers get a deeper understanding of the day's issues and the context that underlies them. The Big Picture, weekdays from 7 to 8 p.m.
Money is more than just currency. It is the fuel for how we live our lives. It connects us. It drives us. It buys us things. But it is more than that. It is who we are and what we want.
Yeah.
Oh, Money isn't everything, but it is everywhere. And so are we. We are younger, we are richer, and we are smarter. We are money. CNN Money.
The Newsmaker is the ultimate talk show, where the biggest names in Switzerland tell you their most important stories. We delve into the economy, markets, politics, real estate,